Hi everyone, I hope you guys are okay. As I mentioned in my previous video, I've done my announcement video first because I was still reading Persuasion at lunchtime today. It's still Sunday, it's the evening, but I finished Persuasion. I'm not going to upload this until tomorrow when I'm back from work because my broadband is really annoying, really slow, and because of that it takes like ever and a day to upload a video, and I know that if I go to hit to upload it tonight, I'm going to have to leave my laptop up on probably all night to get it uploaded. So if I do it after work tomorrow, it'll be so much easier. But anyway, enough about my terrible broadband. I'm here to talk about the book that I have just finished, which means I have completed my collection of Jane Austen, and that is Persuasion. Now, as I mentioned, technically I haven't in the previous video because I'm not reading Lady Susan, but then I don't want to read that book. I'm kind of done with Jane Austen for a while. I need something else. So I'm very much looking forward to reading Dynasty by Tom Holland, looking at the Roman emperors, which I think is going to be amazing. But anyway, Persuasion. This is about a girl called Anne, who when about 10 years, well no, hang on, it's 8 years previously, she had fallen for a man, Captain Wentworth. Well, he wasn't captain then, but he was a Navy officer, and the two of them fell for each other, and he asked for her hand in marriage, but her family felt that he didn't have money, he didn't have rank, that he wouldn't suit Anne, so she was persuaded to say no. And now it's 8 years later, and she and her family have come into contact with Captain Wentworth again. He's come back, and he has gone up in rank in as a Navy officer, and it's all to do with their relationship and what happens. And the people, as usual with Jane Austen, the people that meet along the way, friends and family, and how certain events they get, misunderstandings, all that jazz. Jane Austen, as always. But I have to say, there's something very deep about this. Now, if you know about Jane Austen's real life, you'll know how there was a man in her life who she fell for. You can't say, can't put it any other way than that. And she had this whole thing how she was engaged for a whole one day, because firstly she accepted an offer from a man, and then the next morning regretted it and called it off. But this whole thing of actually falling in love with someone and then being told you can't have him and have to force him away, and how that gets to you in your soul, and then meeting that person again, it feels like, I don't know if you remember the last week when I did my review of Northanger Abbey, I was saying about how real it felt, like it wasn't a thing of this is happening in our world, but it's a world where everything is slightly different, so there's a disconnect from our real world. But Northanger Abbey felt very real. This just like is a sledgehammer of the head with realism, and it's so full of heart, and every word you can feel Anne's sorrow for those 8 years that she has lost. She's kind of, in a sense, when you meet her, she is kind of grieving for, still she's in this headspace, and when she meets Captain Wentworth again, she's really thrown by it. And they're both people who don't stand out, in a sense. They're not like Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth Bennet, because they're quite strong characters and all this, like as in bold in personality, or in their negative sizes. Mr. Darcy is not the greatest of men, in comparison to everyone else. They kind of blend into the crowd, but they're so perfect for one another, and they share these kind of moments of silence where, you know, they're watching each other, and you can feel like when she's playing the piano that Wentworth is watching her so lovingly, and he's longing to have her, but they can't be together, and it's so hard and heartbreaking to read. I think with this one as well, it feels like this is the closest to Jane. It feels like everything is written from her heart and soul. There is so much truth in this book. It feels like I'm actually it feels like I'm looking at Jane, that I'm meeting Jane. I feel also that this was really this is her maturity as a writer. You know how sometimes you can get a writer who kind of follow the same formulas and such throughout their books, and then suddenly they just throw out a book that is so different, and people can absolutely rip it apart or whatever. Do whatever, you know, whatever they like with it. Say whatever they want about it, but it is so amazing that it stays with you. And I can't get Anne out of my head at the moment. I don't know if that's just because I've only just literally finished reading it. But there's something about Anne, and I can't let go of her in my mind. When I was just saying that about how an author produces a book that's so different, a good example of that actually is The Casual Vacancy for J.K. Rowling. How she, you know, she does fantasy stuff and, you know, the Harry Potter series, and suddenly she threw out a book about council elections in this little country village, and it's like critics were like, what the hell is it? And when you break it down, it is absolutely phenomenal piece of writing. And I just, yeah, there's just something about Persuasion that is just going to stay with me, I think, for quite some time. So if I had to do my ranking, Emma is, I think, is still at the top, but very, very close, or maybe even joint first, is Persuasion with Emma. Then it's Northanger Abbey, then Pride and Prejudice, then Sense and Sensibility, and then Mansfield Park. Now, if sounds a bit weird, I suppose, having Pride and Prejudice and Sense and Sensibility, which are two stories I absolutely love, being fourth and fifth place, but I am basing on characters, writing structure, the book structure, chapter, all so many elements. And if you think about it, also the previously, apart from Emma, Sense and Sensibility, and Pride and Prejudice, because I had read them before, but it was very, very long time ago, I was ranking stories based on adaptations, other people's interpretations of her works, not me actually physically reading the book myself. So actually physically reading the book, Emma and Persuasion are my joint first, then Northanger Abbey, then Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility, and then Mansfield Park. So the actual, as I was saying, so this is, I kind of went off on a bit of a tangent then. So this is absolutely written full of heart and soul. It is a book that is very well structured. Now, previously, you know how you may have seen in my other videos how I said about how she has these kind of bulk sections of paragraphs that she's done previously, and Pride and Prejudice kind of broke that formula. She does have it back in Persuasion, but it's very much more to do with the beginning bits, because she is you know, beginning it when Anne is, you know, she's grown up and various things happening in the family, and she meets Captain Wentworth again, but you've got to know all of their backstory first, whereas obviously for adaptations on like TV or film or whatever, or radio, you begin it, you know, when they meet, and they usually tell the backstory through flashbacks or somebody having conversation with them, that kind of thing. So in the book, yeah, you have this block of backstory about them, and I didn't mind that because I wanted to understand their story for a different way than what I'd seen before in various adaptations. But that was really it. She kind of went, after she'd done that, it's kind of the structure of Pride and Prejudice, where she's got these really beautiful conversations that are happening, but she's got her. I think with this one especially, because there is this kind of sorrow that's combined with all of the different elements of the story. You have it as this. It's almost like the past is a ghost that's following them in the story. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but it's almost like an additional character, that's always haunting them. Like there's this chance that there's something could happen, and they both go, oh, but the family, and pull back. It's like they suddenly see the ghost, as it were, of the past. That's haunting them, remembering back to things, and pull back. And I'm like, no, don't pull back. Just get together, please. But I love the two of them together. They are completely equal with each other. Again, Jane Austen has done just as she did in Northanger Abbey with Catherine and Tilney, with Anne and Wentworth. They totally are soulmates. They are meant to be together. You can feel the pain that each of them have when they're separated. It's extraordinary. I feel that she's a lot bolder with her word choices as well, to convey that kind of dark lingerings that, between them, and the fact that they go to Lyme at one point, and one of their group of friends and family has an accident, and she slips and bangs her head. She kind of throws herself and Captain Wentworth literally down these really hard stone steps, goes, catch me, and goes flying, bangs her head and passes out. But I love the fact that Anne, straight away, she's like, go find a doctor, we've got to support her head, don't do that, the other. She knows exactly what she's doing. She stays completely calm. The other women are going kind of crazy, and oh my god, what's going on, as you would kind of expect a woman to react to such a situation, but she's completely calm. And Captain Wentworth is really, I think he's thankful for that, with her help and everything, and it's these things that build up with their connections to each other. I love that the fact that even though Anne is quite quiet and she keeps herself to herself, she has the ability to not panic in situations like that and do what needs to be done. I appreciate that. It feels so natural. I really feel for the characters in this one. It's oh god, I'm not making really much sense at the moment, because I'm so taken aback by this. I honestly feel like Anne was not Anne, sorry. See, I'm thinking Anne instead of Jane, because the one and the same. I feel like Jane really went into her heart and her soul to tell this story, and she wasn't afraid to do that. It might have been something that maybe she was running from her own past and from her own story for quite some time, and then she felt, no, I want to write about it, and she writes it beautifully. Now, obviously, every little event that happens in Persuasion didn't happen to Jane, but having those emotions, having those feelings, and the way that she conveys them on the page is beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. So I think I'd definitely read Persuasion again. I think it's underrated. I really do. And Northanger Abbey, because it is kind of Sense, Sensibility, Pride and Prejudice, and Emma are the three main ones, and then Mansfield Park, Northanger Abbey, and Persuasion are the other ones. Just it's really sad that's the case. But at least it does get read. It is considered a classic. All six of them are, even though I really didn't like one of them. But I wish it had more of a focus than it gets. It's kind of like Anne Bronte, with the Bronte sisters, which who I've talked about quite a lot, as has my sister when we've done videos together. It feels like Emily and Charlotte are the two main ones, and Anne's in the corner, just she's not worth anything. But her writing is extraordinary, and really should get more attention than it does. And that's how I feel about Persuasion with Jane Austen. I definitely recommend it. I definitely read it again, and I'm just so I think I'm probably gonna dream about Persuasion tonight. Because I can't get Wentworth and Anne out of my head, but I'm so glad that Jane gave them the ending that she does. And it's a story of sadness and grief and joy and finding your other half again after being separated. It's wonderful. Now, the only adaptation that I've got, because there aren't many adaptations of Persuasion, is the most recent one with Rupert Penry-Jones as Wentworth and Sally Hawkins, isn't it? Yes, Hawkins, sorry, the surname fell out of my head. Playing Anne, the better cover. Hang on, that's the slip cover. There we go. That's the nicer cover with the two of them there. Now, this does have some kind of flaws now that I've read the book, but they're teeny tiny. And I know, like, a friend of mine at work was saying about how this version kind of annoys her because at the end sequence, Annie's running like crazy through Bath without a bonnet on, trying to find Captain Wentworth in the rain. And she's like, that doesn't happen in the book. And I'm thinking, yeah, but I love it because it's absolutely stunning. But despite, and I'm like being picky about changes from the book, I honest to God don't care. It's beautifully shot, it's beautifully conveyed, it really gets into the tone of the story of these two people and the use of colour and music and the silent moments. And there's these moments where Sally Hawkins just looks straight into the camera. She's looking directly at us. And there's one bit where she's writing this really heartbreaking letter. She looks straight into the camera and then just a single tear rolls down her face. And it's so heartbreaking, but it's the connection to the audience. And I felt there was connections in the book as I was reading it as well. So I love that they did those kind of things. But it's really beautifully put together. I really, really strongly recommend this version. And of course, as I've referred to in all of my other Jane Austen reviews, there is the BBC Radio 4 Jane Austen collection. And who's in Persuasion? Let's have a look. Oh, right. So, Juliet Stevenson, Tim Briley, Saoirse Cusack, Roger Hume, Claire Falconbridge, Peter Harlow, Catherine Holberg, Alistair Cameron, John Abel, Alison Dowling, Jane Dowell, Sheila Graham, Patricia Gailmore, Jeffrey Dench, sorry, the plastic went fuzzy then under there. I'll need to press it tighter so I can see. Tina Gray, Heidel Nichols, Carol Boyd, Stephen Hancock, Clive Marlowe, Paul Alexander, Tony Turner, and Carol Boyd. This is from 1986. Persuasion. It's not a bad little drama, I have to say. It's the only radio adaptation that I know either. So yeah, because Persuasion, again, it's the book of hers that not many people really adapt or focus on, which is so sad. But yeah, there's the two adaptations that I recommend. So that's all I can think about to say about Persuasion, and I've finished the Jane Austen collection. Have you read this book? I'd love to know what you think. You leave me a comment in the comments box below, or give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, entirely up to you, I'll let you decide. And I'll be back with my thoughts on Dynasty, or Dynasty, however you say it, by Tom Holland as soon as I finish reading. Alright guys, bye!